All right, enough of me. I'm going to introduce our opening fireside chat. That is Jacob Glassman. He's the Deputy Assistant Secretary of War for Critical Technologies. Jacob? All right. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Whoa, there we go. Shoot.
Mic works.
Yeah. Good morning.
All right. You are involved in some really interesting things. I think it was only a year ago when I sat down with you and you had a completely different role. So now, what does your role entail?
Yeah, so Pentagon years are kind of like dog years sometimes, right? So 1 year in, I was like, that was like 4 jobs ago, it seems like. But yeah, so now I'm the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Critical Technologies, Enabling Technologies. So really excited about this because in the portfolio, several things, but trusted microelectronics, quantum computing, small modular reactor program, even our DTIC program. We're actually making DTIC be a real thing. So really, really excited about that. But these are all the enabling technologies, and that's why I was really excited about given the opportunity to move from science to technology to critical technologies, because these are the key enablers that is going to be propelling our advanced capability in the next really 12 to 36 months. That's the pace that we're looking to go in all these areas.
AI's rise has prompted public and private organizations alike, many in this room, to really rethink their tech posture and needs. And that's everything from infrastructure, energy, data, governance, et cetera. So in your new role, your portfolio, as you just mentioned, kind of spans a lot of these areas. I hope to dig into a couple of those here, just to kind of set the stage for the rest of this morning, including quantum and nuclear energy. So what excites you about your leadership in some of these new areas and what you're digging into?
Well, first, I'm blessed. I'm excited pretty much about everything I'm in the portfolio right now, and that's really is a blessing. But where we are as far as these enabling technologies, we see where AI in particular has come in the last just 2 years. I mean, I've set it up here before talking with you that we were kind of at the bleeding edge of it when I came up here in 2024 talking about enterprise pilots we were doing in the Navy. We were ahead of our time, but it's almost embarrassing in hindsight because compared to today, it's like it's like we discovered fire, and now we're at the jet engine. So but what's fascinating is seeing that's kind of adoption of AI, where it's actually getting into workflows, getting into how we do business. What my portfolio is centered on is, okay, well, how do we not get to critical mass? Like, how do we actually scale that, right? And that sounds kind of silly right now, but if you think of the compute, for example, the amount of compute that next gen AI is going to require, I mean, we're talking about orbiting data centers. And not as like a fantasy thing, as like that is really the demand. So when you think about, okay, well, how do we not reach a ceiling there? That's where it's power, nuclear energy. That's where it's more efficient compute, parallel compute, like quantum. So that's what really, really excites me. Where I'm seeing that we're kind of the current generation. We're in terms of compute. We're really kind of hitting the edge of it, right? We're 2 nanometers. Maybe we can get to 1 nanometer, maybe a half nanometer. I don't know, but it's still a transistor, right? So quantum is that kind of that next leap. Okay, but then how are you going to power all this stuff? Like I said, orbiting data centers because of the solar arrays. Like that's kind of crazy. That's how much power we actually need for these things. So nuclear energy. So I'm just really excited because instead of waiting for us to kind of hit that ceiling, we in the department are getting out ahead of it. We're recognizing that these are key enabling technologies that we will hit that wall if we don't actually invest and have that available when we get to the next generation.
You spoke, obviously alluded to it just now in terms of the computing power that AI is sort of demanding right now. How do you think how do you think about the infrastructure that is needed to support the growth and making AI scalable in terms of how government is calling for it right now?
So in terms of infrastructure, yeah. Um, I mean, kind of the catchphrase I've been using is watts equals flops, right? So that goes back to SMRs. But also, if you look at I'd say the controversies about, say, data centers and things like that, we are not set up for this type of distributed compute. So if you look what's happening in China, where they can just literally just build a coal plant right next to a data center. And if they don't have enough power, they will just build another coal plant. And if there's a village in the way, oh no, buy village, right? So thankfully, we don't live in a society like that. But back to the limiting thing, how do you set this up in terms of, okay, I have a rural area over here. That's acceptable for data centers. We're in Northern Virginia. It's kind of the capital of data centers, right? But we, it's just like anything. You need power, you need water. Those are really the major things. Those are going to be your ultimate limiters for not necessarily the silicon.
So how do you foresee the opportunities for some of those more advanced nuclear power that would unlock a lot of these capabilities?
Yeah. So if you all are, I hope you guys are somewhat aware of the modular nuclear programs. I am. Thankfully, nuclear is actually getting cool again. I mean, I served on a submarine, so I lived about 20 feet away from a nuclear reactor for long periods of time, and look how I turned out, right? So it is. I am unbelievably bullish on this because imagine having uninterruptible power that is modular and scalable. Okay, you put one module there. It provides X amount of power for the compute. Oh no, new gen frontier models come out. Turns out we need 4 times the compute. We need 4 times the power. Okay, put 4 more modules right next to it. So you have clean energy. You have the best energy density that you can find. And really, the nuclear technology, everyone thinks 3 Mile Island and things like that. This is completely different, a completely different way of harnessing nuclear power. And I personally believe that it is really the only real mature answer for the power issue. Again, look at all the controversies. It's all over the political spectrum on no, say no to data centers, say yes. Oh, it's power. It's with the grid. With modular nuclear, it's not. That's not a problem. You just put more of these things there, and they are not quite as scary as people think they are. So yeah, I'm incredibly bullish, and I actually think it is absolutely it is absolutely that technology in particular is the only thing that's going to actually get us to that scaling.
Very exciting things, for sure. I want to pivot over to the quantum side of things. Obviously, we're seeing rapid advances in AI today, but also you spoke about some of those enabling technologies. Quantum could really change what AI does. You've described it as almost like a boss level of computing. So what becomes possible with these two technologies?
Yeah, so I mean, AI is an algorithm, right? So it still is, in a lot of ways, linear computing. Quantum just makes parallel computing at a crazy level. Not to overly nerdify quantum physics, but so when you think about time required to really enable a lot of these algorithms, it's really for really advanced stuff. So say perfectly modeling a molecule, a chemical molecule. Okay, well, you can do that with AI. You could do that with silicon, and I've had people say, "Oh, I don't know why you need all that quantum because you could." Yeah, absolutely. In 9 months and 12 months, you can probably run one thing. Quantum, it's a completely different way of compute. I mean, if you really boil down to it, the silicon we use today are transistors. It's almost based off a mechanical system, a mechanical switch to 1 to 0. Quantum doesn't work that way. It works in phasing, right? So think about what that really unlocks. So if I have the power to be able to take the whole of human knowledge, like AI can, and combine that together to come to predictive predictive answers to questions that we have. Well, now if I supercharge it, boss mode that, if you will, and now say, molecular molecules, now I can model almost perfectly the human genome. Okay, well, think about all the medical applications. Think about all the chemical innovations that can happen out of things like that. And that's just one use case. Everyone likes to focus on cryptology for quantum. And personally, I think it's a little short-sighted because you're going to have quantum versus quantum on that. But I think about being able to hyper accurately model things from at the atomic scale. If you can do that with quantum computing, that just unlocks entirely new industries.
I want to pivot back to your prior role. I know you were more involved in sort of like the foundation, S&T foundations, I think is what you referred it to. A report you led, you kind of make the case that the challenge isn't really developing tech. It's more about creating the enterprise more quickly. So what do you think has to change inside government to keep pace with some of the speed that some of these technologies are sort of demanding?
Yeah, they thank you for the plug. Highly recommend look at our DRE report. It's on the cto.mil website under reports or something like that. I'll figure out the URL. What was an incredible finding out of that exercise is our lab ecosystem. We have over 70 labs between our federally funded labs, our university labs, and our Department of War labs. I'm not even counting our NASA and DOE and National Science Foundation friends. And going through, because I got boots on the ground, I went to 17 labs in 6 weeks. They gave me 45 days to do the report. So it is incredible, the technology that we have. And then I went to some of our partners, probably some of the individual companies in this room, and in their R&D worlds, just absolutely incredible technology. And what we found is like, okay, why are we using these old FPGAs, which essentially 1980s technology, on our munitions, for example, when we've got like 18A processing that can do all these other things? And as we drilled down in it, we realized, and I'm not even talking about cutting edge, that's just commercial stuff. And really what we found is we're very, very good at prototyping, experimenting stuff. We are epically crappy at scaling anything, right? So we're really good at buying on one end. We're really good at the early basic and applied research in the other. That stuff in the middle, that's where we just lose the ball. And it's not, the most frustrating part of it is not a technology problem. The technology is absolutely there. What we do not do is effectively even understand where it is and how it can go into our major systems. So we're doing a lot of work on that now. That has been recognized top to bottom in the department. We're bringing in, just as an example, just in our office in R&E, we brought in an embed from InQtel and another one from Office Strategic Capital. So therefore, now we actually have private equity and venture capital in front row seat for all of these enabling technology investments that we're making. So they have the ability to be like, that can scale commercially, or that can scale in here. And oh, by the way, here's the private equity funding to make that happen. And then it actually grows legs and starts growing. But we're not there yet. Thankfully, I know the new person who just took over DTIC. So I'm actually been tasked DTIC with being that central repository, which is actually what it was always supposed to be, but that's a separate discussion, for all of the technology within our lab ecosystem. So that way, now you put AI algorithms on top of that, and you get all the data together, multiple classification levels. You can now really identify a lot of capability that really links, say, a Navy program needs a solution, and it turns out an Air Force lab in a completely different time and different place had already figured that out. So it's very, very exciting. I'd say we're on probably step 2 of a 10-step process to get that done, but it's absolutely critical. We've recognized that it's not a technology problem; it's a transition and scale problem.
Absolutely. I want to pivot back to some of the feeding industries that you were sort of alluding to in the beginning of your remarks. Things like power generation, advanced cooling, semiconductor manufacturing, specialized infrastructure, all of these are part of the conversation around AI. So how important is it for government to continue to invest in these areas and some of the feeding industries that power the economy?
Yeah, and I could say it's incredibly important, but we're actually putting our money where our mouth is, right? So I always run into that. People are like, I have people, BD people and others that come talk to me and like, oh, well, General so-and-so is really, really interested and really, really wants this. I said, well, that's really interesting because General so-and-so has a $340 million budget. So how much money has General so-and-so given you? It's like, oh, well, nothing yet. I'm like, he's not interested. Sorry. You could tell where we put our money. So you've probably seen some of the deals. We just announced a bunch of deals out of Office of Strategic Capital and other places on where we are actually investing everything from rare earths to in my group, we've invested over $140 million in the Quantum Park in Chicago, which is absolutely an incredible facility that they're building there. Our modular nuke program, again, we are investing in actually deploying a modular nuclear reactor. I'll have one. We just did the site survey 2 weeks ago, and we'll have it installed on a Navy base in the next 2 years, within the next 2 years. I'm trying to accelerate that faster with interior and energy. So I'll say, not only are we recognizing it's important, but in this regime, we are actually putting our money where our mouth is. And what we've really found that when we invest in something, especially at Office of Strategic Capital, where we get really choice financing, we find a huge multiplier in the private equity world. If a company can come in and get X amount from us, they've told me like it's very easy to get me 5-7x outside of that. And that's really where we're pushing, where this needs to be much more of a partnership. We're expanding the industrial base as best we can, but we can't just do what we've always done where it's just, oh, well, more money, oh, just more money, oh, just more money. No, we need public-private investments in both of these things, and we're really reliant on the private sector to look at because our quantities are never going to even touch the quantities that you'll get in commercial industry. So therefore we're reliant on kind of planting the seeds, helping them get to a certain stage, and then hope you blow up on the commercial market, and we just reap that on the other end.
And we see that in so many other examples, especially with DARPA or some of the, I think you told me the government owns part of IBM now. So
10%. I believe we're the majority owner.
Yeah.
Single owner.
So we do have a couple minutes left. Before I close out, I do want to see if any of you have any questions. We do have a mic right here in the middle aisle. Feel free to walk on up. Nobody? All right, back to me. So looking more big picture, long term, how is the Pentagon sort of focusing on building this innovation ecosystem that incorporates those labs that you visited, the researchers, the startups, and the workforce? How are they sort of getting the tools that they need to move faster?
Yeah, so again, another plug, highly recommend read the report. I'm very proud of it. But I'll just give 2 examples on how we're doing that. The fundamental objective is to lower the barrier of entry as much as possible for innovators to provide, to at least get an at bat with us, right? The story I like to tell, I was out at Port Hueneme 2 months ago, and they were showing me this little drone that they had that was really, that they were using operationally for a thing. And he said, yeah, we had a music student figure this out. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I said, the local community college, he was majoring in music, just had a really good idea for how to do a vertically taken off and landing drone, showed up at Port Hueneme, and within 3 or 4 months, and of course it's set up with, there's some venture people, some mentors and all that, very, very good ecosystem there. He's actually flying a drone. So that really, that exceeded a lot of what, industry provided. So I love that example because there was innovation there. There's innovation with entrepreneurs, innovation in our labs, innovation in non-traditionals, all these other places. So the two examples that are resulting out of the report. So one is, we're calling it Lab Finder. So the objective is we're piloting this now where we can now open up our lab facilities, think anechoic chambers, think all things like that, and make it like Airbnb for labs. Like, because we have a these things are expensive. The taxpayers paid a lot of money for this, and their utilization rate is not 100%. So let's allow innovators have access to those types of facilities where they may be able to bring their innovation into our ecosystem. So that's one big one. The other one is IP. So some of you may have seen the patent holidays that we've been holding, but we have over 7,000 patents that are not monetized, not transitioned. And again, that's a poor investment for the taxpayer. The taxpayers paid a lot of money for that. Why is that under, it's not hidden away, but it's just so hard to find. The barrier of entry, you had to like have a consultant that help you figure out even who to talk to. And God forbid you talk to one agency and, oh, that's a different transition agent, the other. Now you got to make a whole new relationship. Why are we making this so hard? We should be exposing all the good ideas that are coming out of these labs, and bad ideas too. I mean, that's the nature of basic and applied research. Not everything is going to work out, but even exposing that to industry to be able for them to be like, I can take that and I can scale that. So we're definitely not there yet, but I'll say that we are working really hard between the DTIC, putting together all of our data at least in the same place on what we're innovating, but also lowering that barrier entry to let commercial enterprises come in, utilize our lab facilities, and be able to monetize our IP.
Well, this is all very fascinating, and we are out of time. If anyone is looking to learn more about the report or some of these other areas that Jake touched on, just let me know, and I'll be sure to send you the information. So thank you so much, Jake.
Thank you. Appreciate it, guys.